Hi, I'm Kristina Bergsten with the Animal Law Firm, where we are fighting for the underdog. Today I'd like to talk to you about a situation that we get calls on pretty frequently, unfortunately, and this is a situation involving shelters or rescues stealing dogs from people. So the typical fact pattern is someone who usually they're experiencing homelessness or another adverse circumstance, but someone hits hard times, has a pet, typically it's a dog, takes the dog to the shelter saying, look, I just really need help. I really need to be able to get back on my feet. I can come back in a couple weeks and pick up my dog. And the shelter people say, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Come back in a couple weeks. We'll hold your dog for you. And the person is like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And they leave. And then they do come back either a few days or a week or two later. And they say, okay, I can take my dog back now. Can I have my dog? And the shelter says, no, you surrendered your dog to us. We're not giving you your dog back. We already adopted your dog out, or we euthanized your dog, or whatever. So this is a very common theme that I've seen, unfortunately, that shelters and rescues do. And sometimes they do trick people into signing surrender paperwork. Other times they just make judgments on people and say, well, if you weren't able to take care of your dog this time, you won't be able to do it in the future, so we're not giving you your dog back. So I say this because unfortunately, we can't take on every pro bono case that we come in contact with. We're a small office and we just don't, have a lot of independent wealth that we can take on a lot of pro bono cases. So unfortunately, we're not able to help a lot of these people because they don't have the funds to finance a lawsuit against these shelters. So these shelters, these rescues that do this, they get away with this all the time, unfortunately. Some of you, if you're in Colorado, may have heard of Watson. This was kind of a similar situation. This family, their toddler stepped on their dog while he was sleeping. The dog bit him out of surprise. And so feeling that it was their better option, they took the dog to the shelter saying, we just need to get the dog out of the house. We're going to try to find him a home, but can you guys watch him? And the Denver shelter said, sure, yeah, as long as you come back before the 10-day quarantine is over. Because whenever a dog bites someone, it doesn't matter what state it's in, whenever a dog bites a person or another dog, you are required by law to undergo a 10-day quarantine, which means that your dog is not allowed to really leave the house except to go to the bathroom, and really not even allowed to leave your property at all, to the extent that that's possible. So no dog parks, no shelters, no vets, no I didn't mean to say shelters, I meant to say doggy daycare, but dog has to stay at home, quarantine, right? So so they said they didn't want to do the quarantine at home. They felt uncomfortable, so they took the dog to the shelter. The shelter told them, okay, once as long as you come back before the 10 days expires, then you can get your dog back. And so the Watson's human parents, they did sign surrender paperwork, but they were going off of the verbal promise of the shelter. And I can tell you right now that will not be defensible in court. That's the other reason why these cases are so hard, and it's really hard to help people, even people who do have the money, right? Because once you sign paperwork, it doesn't matter what was said verbally after that or before that. If it's not in the four corners of that document, then it does not count and it cannot come into evidence. There's certain exceptions to that, but for the most part, that is the hard and fast rule. So it would have been really, really hard to sue that shelter in order to get the dog out based on that verbal promise by the shelter worker, whoever it was. But that said, this is the exact kind of situation that happens all the time. People have some reason why they need to give their dog up for a few days or a week or maybe two, and the shelter says, oh yeah, just sign this paperwork, we'll give you your dog back, no problem. It's that kind of dishonesty that I think is what makes it hard sometimes to really, I don't know, it makes it hard for me personally to really love shelters as much as I want to. Shelters and rescues do fabulous work 9 times out of 10, but there's always that one time where I'm like, that's just not right, And you're a shelter. Like, I understand that times are tough, and especially right now with shelters overflowing. But the fact of the matter is like, if it's overflowing and you really can't keep the dog, then be honest with that person and be like, look, if you leave this dog here, we're gonna have to euthanize the dog. That was what happened in Watson's case. Different reasons. So Watson was on death row because of the bite, right? For some reason, somebody said it was a level 4 bite on the Dunbar scale. If you're not familiar with the Dunbar scale, just Google Ian Dunbar bite scale, and that'll give you what I'm talking about. It's a scale of 1 to 5, so a 4 bite is like pretty severe. And I didn't see any photos of the bite, so I don't really know, but just based on the facts as described, a dog nipping someone in out of sleep. I mean, it's a baby. I don't know. It's hard to say. I just find it hard to believe it was a 4 on the bite scale. But that aside, they assessed it as a 4. They said Watson I just dropped my thing. Watson cannot be adopted out, so we're going to have to euthanize him. So when Watson's family came back to get him back to give him to the shelter or the rescue that they had found that could take him, the shelter he was at was refusing to turn him over to another shelter that would give him a life. So they're like, no, he has to be euthanized. And everybody was like, what is the point of that? That is so stupid. So eventually public pressure did win out in the end, and they released Watson to the rescue. So now he's living happily with another family. But yeah, unfortunately, this kind of thing happens a lot. So if you fall on hard times with your dog, know 110,000%, or with any pet, if you give your pet to a shelter or a rescue, it is not a daycare center. They will keep your animal. They will not give it back. I don't care what they say. They are lying to your face. I've had enough calls about this that I feel like I can safely say that they are lying to your face because they can either make money off of that animal by readopting it out, or they can make money off of the transfer and not add it to their no-kill rate. Don't even get me started on like no-kill shelters. That's a whole nother topic for another day. But yeah, you will not get your animal back if you give it to a shelter, especially if you sign paperwork. So if you are being forced to sign paperwork, make sure you read it thoroughly. And if there's anything in it that you do not understand or do not agree with, do not sign it, and try to find a friend or family member who will take your pet. Honestly, because there's nothing really I can do or any attorney can do once you sign paperwork, because that is you giving up your pet. So it's just so sad. Sorry, it just makes me so sad. On a happier note, I mean, let's just focus on the positive here. Watson did get out. There are success stories. But do everything you can to protect yourself and your pet, and make sure you read everything before you sign it, whether it has to do with your pet or just anything in your life. That's just general advice. And, you know, try to find other resources other than a shelter or a shelter or a rescue. So anyway, that's it for today, underdogs. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Hope you all are doing well and stay safe out there. Bye.